What was it?
And I have a quiz for you at the end about that painting back there. I'll bring it closer later. I want you to see if you can tell me who they are.
Ah, will do, will do.
Okay.
Hey,
Oh,
Marissa, good to see you.
Well, sorry. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you, everyone.
all right. So good morning. With that, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Today, hold on 1 second. Let me. Are you seeing the slideshow or the? Okay, is this better? Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. This is our UCLA Health IT biweekly all hands project managers meeting. Every month we try to bring in a speaker to speak to us about things from a different lens. We're always involved deeply in IT projects and try to have another speaker in the industry or outside the industry. So today we have Bruce. We're going to talk about a human trait, resiliency, and it may not directly correlate with some of our project management day-to-day stuff, but in our life we have gone through different each of us might have gone through different adversities in our life and had to be resilient to get through it. And what we define resilience as a trait is our ability to overcome adversity and maintain our well-being throughout the process. And it includes qualities like grit, persistence, and determination. And Bruce is embodiment of all that. And just wanted to give you a brief bio or history. I'm sure you have read it already, but I'll just go over it quickly. Bruce was incarcerated at the age of 23, and he went on to spend 29 long years at the maximum security prison in New York State. For simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time, Bruce was handed down a life sentence for a crime he did not commit. And from the outset, Bruce was committed to making sure that this didn't become he didn't become hardened by the harshness of the prison system. And as many of you may have experienced or noticed that most inmates return back after being incarcerated for a long time from the daily human life or the civilized society kind of thing. So he took this opportunity by transforming his life while in prison by pursuing higher education, reading broadly, and exploring as many self-development opportunities that was available to him from within. And as you can see, he took the opportunity to go through a lot of different educational opportunities. And in 2017, he earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Mercy College. And in 2020, he also had a rare opportunity of presenting a TEDx talk from within the Sing Sing Correctional Facility. And I have provided a link to that TEDx talk. So if you click on the agenda link and go to this slide, you can watch that video also. And there was several efforts, many years of effort to apply for clemency, and Bruce was granted executive clemency by New York State Governor in December 2022, and he was released from custody April 24, 2023, last year. And Bruce is now currently employed as a senior client advocate at the Queen's Defenders, and his current work encompasses getting involved with clients and advocating for alternatives to incarceration. And the goal is to engage in decarceration and limit the impact of a criminal record on employment, housing, education, and public benefits. So that's the background of Bruce, and I will now turn it over to Ian to moderate our discussion conversation. As always, please feel free to ask questions, stop us, or post questions on the chat, and we will take questions that way. With that, I'll turn it over to Ian.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sankar. That was a great overview. And yes, we'll try to make this as interactive as possible. So if you guys are in a position to share your screen, I mean, not your screen, your video, that would be great. And also, as Sankar mentioned, you can raise your hand, ask questions, and also put it in the chat, and we will continue to moderate that. So, all right. So jumping right in, first of all, Bruce, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. We've had a lot of amazing conversations over the year, and I'm really happy that we're able to make this happen today. So I know Sankar already gave a little bit of overview of your background, but I'd love to kind of just start from your perspective, just a little bit about your life history to date, and then we'll dive into some of the topics around resiliency. So let's start with that. Start with your story.
Thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate you, and I'm honored to be here to share with so many beautiful people. All right. As you stated, my name is Bruce Bryan, and my family migrated to America by way of Antigua, West Indies. Grew up primarily in the South Jamaica side of Queens, Southeast Queens. And at the age of 23, I was in 1993, I was arrested and charged with murder. A murder that the community and others knew that I did not commit. I was actually in Queens House, the Queens Detention Center, for maybe a week or two. And then I went into what we call the Terror Dome of Rikers Island and winded up staying there for a couple of years, fighting my case back and forth. Almost 3 years going back and forth to court. In 1996, I was convicted and sentenced to 37 and a half to life. After 29 years of hard work and of visualizing myself walking out of the prison doors, after my prosecutor was arrested and convicted for misconduct for a long line of bad behavior that he engaged in as a prosecutor, I was released. I was fortunate enough to be granted executive clemency by Governor Kathy Hochul in New York State. And I was released last year, April 24th. And upon my release, I made it my life's mission to be committed to not just disrupting and dismantling the system, but also to informing people about the dynamics of the criminal system of injustice and what it's premised on, what it's designed to do, and how the 13th Amendment continues to thrive here in America with modern day slavery, which is what the prison industrial complex is all about. So throughout the course of my years of incarceration, as I said earlier on in my incarceration, one of the things that I learned was that you had the power within you to will yourself to thrive despite the harshest of conditions. I remember early on, doing a whole lot of writing and coming across a parable. And the parable said it was about the dandelion and the wild orchid. The wild orchid needed a particular environment, particular watering, particular nurturing and cultivating in order for it to thrive and bloom. Meanwhile, the dandelion could thrive in almost any environment. I mean, you can be walking down the street and you see a crack in the concrete and you'll see a dandelion sprouting up after snow has melted in New York City. And so I internalize that as I do much of what I read in terms of my self-help books and my life coaching books that I've studied while I was incarcerated. I decided early on that I was going to be that dandelion, and that the way I was conditioned in survival mode, coming up in the inner city, in impoverished neighborhoods, marginalized communities that are completely disenfranchised, we often function off of survival. It's almost like a sixth sense to people in the inner cities, right? To poor, impoverished Black and brown people. we often function off of that survival mode. I decided earlier on that I was going to turn off the switch that said survive, and that I had a right to thrive, and I was going to thrive despite where I was at. I can't hear you for some reason. Your audio is off. You're on silent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. One of the quotes that I keep going back to that I got from you a while back was, you didn't serve time, you allowed time to serve you.
Mhm.
And that for me is very powerful. And I'd love to delve into that a little bit. How were you able to find that strength from within, that resilience to not only go through, but come out stronger on the other end in the harshest of circumstances?
I believe it was a combination of things. And one was my desire to learn and to be an avid reader, and to not just read anything. Because, they say you consume nonsense, nonsense in, nonsense out. So I was very particular about what I read. And two of my favorite books, Man's Search for Meaning by Jonathan Kozel, the founder of logotherapy, but
Viktor Frankl, right?
Viktor Frankl.
Yep.
But the other book was Left to Tell, which was more recent, right? Which was more modern day genocide, in terms of the Rwanda genocide, which actually, I experienced, watching it on the news while I was incarcerated and hearing about it on the news daily. It's by an author named Immaculée Ilibagiza, and it's a true story. And Left to Tell, I learned about this young girl, Immaculée, and what it meant for her to survive under the harshest of circumstances. And not only survive, but then to thrive, right? First came survival, then came thriving. And I just internalized a much of what I read. And I began to understand that when we change the way that we look at things, things change the way that they look. So it was really a mindset shift for me. How I experienced certain things, how I assess certain things, I began to change it from the victim mode to a mode of purpose and meaning. Despite where I was, there was meaning in every challenge that I had to face. There was meaning in the midst of my suffering. And so I realized that in that meaning, I wanted to be, while I was wounded, I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to help other people because I saw men commit suicide. I saw men lose hope and then commit suicide later on or fall to substance abuse. I saw men beaten and brutalized because how they approach situations with the staff inside maximum security prisons. For 29 years, I was in the worst maximum security prisons in New York State. In fact, I spent the last 9 years in Sing Sing, where there's actually still the death penalty, right? The electric chair. And the last people that were executed there were the husband and wife Rosenthal, who were alleged to be Russian spies in the 40s. In the 1940s, they were alleged to be Russian spies, and charged with espionage and spying and stuff, and they were executed in the very same prison that I was released from last year with $40 and a bus ticket. That's what they give you after everyone. I don't care if you do 100 years. After 29 years of incarceration, they gave me $40 and a bus ticket and said, go figure it out. But even in that, my mindset was prepared to deal with that, because the greatest lesson that I've learned is that despite where you are, it doesn't have to define who you are or what you can become. And the most joyous people in the world throughout my studies, the happiest people on the planet are those who have found a cause that is greater than themselves and have committed to it. I found those to be the happiest people that I've ever read about, that I've ever learned about. One person that who was a long distance mentor of mine was Harry Belafonte. Here was a guy who was the first person to sell a million records off of his Calypso album in the 50s. And he committed his life to financing the civil rights movement. And he continued up until his death, up until his passing, to give of himself, because he found the cause that was greater than himself, and he committed to it. And he was the happiest person I've ever met. I had the opportunity to meet him, which I think was serendipitous, at my graduation in 2017 in Sing Sing prison. He actually came in with Usher to my my bachelor's degree graduation.
Wow.
So
speaking of projects bigger than yourself, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the Douglas project that you're a part of.
thank you, man. The Douglas Project is something that's near and dear to my heart, because when I was inside, a guy that went home named John Adrian Velasquez, he looked back at me when he was preparing to leave. He said, "I'm not going to forget about you." And I said, "I'm innocent like you, and I believe that you're not going to forget about me." And when John Adrian Velasquez was released from Sing Sing on clemency, maybe 3 years ago, a year later or so, he came back in with the Douglas Project. He had just ran across him when he was released. And what the Douglas Project does is it brings in everyday people from different walks of life who have had absolutely no interaction with people that are incarcerated, and brings them inside of institutions. Sometimes they do virtual visits, but in Sing Sing, they did an in-person visit, because Sing Sing, it happens to be the closest maximum security prison to New York City. I've been everywhere from Clinton, which is on the borderline of Canada, where snow is up to your chest, all the way to Sing Sing. So Clinton is one of the farthest. Sing Sing is the closest. I've been to both. I spent years in both of them. And he came into Sing Sing, John Adrian, with the Douglas Project, and he brought in about 25 people from, different walks of life. Some were entrepreneurs, some were, head leaders of nonprofits, some were from different walks of life. And we sat in this big circle, and we had an icebreaker. And then after the icebreaker question, we broke off into small groups. And in these small groups, we really got to talk to each other and to know each other. And when the everyday people who had never been exposed to people who have been convicted of a crime, whether they were innocent or guilty, were done, there were so many tears, so many relationships built, so many hugs. And I felt that was so meaningful, because they had the opportunity to see the humanity of those that are incarcerated. And I think that it's two things. One, is very lazy for us to think that to define people based on the worst thing they've ever done. The second thing is, I think we have to all be gatekeepers in protecting the humanity and the dignity of those who society says or deems to be the worst of us. So those two things rang true for me that day, and I experienced it from the inside. Then when I was released last year, I asked them, could I be a part of a virtual visit, because anxiety was a bit high for me to go into a prison. So I asked to be a part of a virtual visit where I would visit men in Colorado. And to see these men, and just be able to talk to them. And they sat in this classroom, and they all were They all were inspired to say that they want to be in the position that I'm in so that they can reach back for other people, so that they can, tell other people about them. And I gave them my word that I would tell people about them and tell them how important they are, despite what they've done. For me, that was one of the, one of the highlights of my release from incarceration. Something that was meaningful to me. And I just would like other people to have that experience, man. The Douglas Project is something that it changes hearts, it changes minds, and it makes someone's, not their day, but it makes someone's life better.
I'm gonna shift the topic a little bit, but still keep it within the realm of resiliency. One of the biggest problems in the workplace in the US is burnout. And this has led to people silently quitting the workforce, to the extreme cases wherein you see an uptick in suicide among professionals. And so burnout is such a serious issue. One of the latest surveys showed that about 2/3 of the people surveyed either experience is going through some sort of burnout. With this, how can we use resiliency and mindset to help us through burnout?
Great question. I mean, I can't imagine how many people that I've encountered that felt burned out. And, it took more than just me to sit down and have real conversations with them and to let them know that, each of us that are part of this human family, we actually have a moral obligation to commit to the greater good of the rest of us. And are you still there? Can you still hear me?
Yeah. You're
And
fine.
I think it's so important for us to understand that I can't see, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's so important for us to understand that as being a part of the human family, that you have a meaningful, purposeful part of this world. And when you look at the whole is so much greater than the sum parts, right? The whole is so important that each of us, down to the person that sweeps the floors in the office, they're just as valuable as the CEO or the head of any organization or any entity, the managers. We all are part of the human family, and collectively, I think it's so important for us to understand that resilience is not something that comes easily. I think when you look at the caterpillar going through its cocoon, if you cut the cocoon and you pull it out of the cocoon before it's time, the butterfly can't fly. So it needed to experience that resistance from the cocoon so its wings can develop the strength so that it can fly. So when we find ourselves in those tough moments, or in those moments where we feel like we want to burn out, please understand, like the caterpillar, your wings are just being developed. Your strength is just being developed. I mean, if I can withstand 29 years of wrongful incarceration in extremely violent and volatile environments, and go on and sit with men for years and talk to them about what it means to be calm, what it means to breathe, what it means to be centered, what it means to be a major part of this universe, what it means to have been born, right? Those billions of cells that are produced when someone is impregnated, and then you're the one that survives, right? What that means is more than anything that either of us can ever fathom, right? it's so meaningful because we have a purpose and we have a meaning in this existence. And when you feel burned out, I think it's good to speak to someone. Speak to your colleagues and express how you feel, right? Because one of the things we did in prison was, and we do today, is we lean on each other. I had a guy call me this morning and tell me he just got a job. He's been home 8 months and he's working in the office, but the office feels like a cell.
Mm.
And he's very uncomfortable in there. So I spoke to him for this morning. So I spoke to him for an hour this morning about learning to breathe, about his breath, about being present in those moments, and about how important he is to the people that he serves, because we're all providing a service to each other and to humanity. And, you know, he was able to, you know, work through that. But at the same time, I also told him that I'm going to introduce him to a therapist that I've used since I've been released, someone that he can talk to. And I tell all the guys that are released from prison that I know, I don't care what time it is, right? If it's 3 a.m. and you need somebody to talk to, call me, because this is not a job for me. This is my life. This is personal to me. This is my purpose in life. My purpose in is to pour into other human beings and to be receptive to them pouring into me, because I need that as well.
So, Bruce, I want to pull in the folks here on the Zoom call. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to either put in the chat or just raise your hand or just start talking. We can definitely hear you. I want to get your thoughts and have Bruce you know, respond to them in the few minutes that we have left. I have one more question, and I'll hand it over to Sankar and the team. And you know, in the workplace, a lot of us are managers, project managers. We deal with people. We need teammates, team members to get things done. Every now and then you encounter, dare I say, difficult team members, right? I'd love to get your thoughts on how do you deal with, encourage, motivate team members that you know you need for what you're trying to do, be it a project, an initiative, and they're not totally on board. How do you approach it?
One of the things I realize is that everyone wants to feel inclusive. People need to feel inclusive. People need to feel appreciated. They need to understand that their work matters. And they need to understand that they bring a unique gift to that project. While one person may be emotionally intelligent, another person may be a very tech savvy or very well in terms of rationalization. Another may be very pragmatic in how things should go, and another may be very decisive. And I think they all play a role in accomplishing the greater good, right? And the greater good is not just the company or the workforce. The greater good is humanity. It always goes back to the dignity of humanity. And this is what we're all about. This is what we all do day in and day out, right? Whether it's healthcare or it's education, it's about the dignity of humanity and providing the best to other human lives because they matter. And I think when we allow that team member who may be difficult to understand how much he or she matters, how much they matter to the overall goal, it's such an important part of achieving that goal, right? Because one of the things we say in prison is that we're not leaving anyone behind. I want to give you a scenario very briefly. When I first got to Comstock, as they call it, Gladiator School, Great Meadows, very violent, maximum security prison. The officers will pull guys out of the line and throw them on the wall and say, listen, I told you don't, you know, a guy might whisper or talk and say, no talking on the line. The rest of you go ahead, go to the mess hall. So it'd be maybe 30, 40 of us, and we'll go to the mess hall. That night, we'll learn the guy that they pulled off the wall is in the hospital with a broken arm or a broken rib, and he's in solitary confinement. So it got to the point where we decided whenever they pulled somebody off the wall, we would not leave until that person came off the wall with us. So we said there'll be no man left behind. And sometimes it was very scary standoffs with, to be quite blunt with you, 6'6", 6'5", huge racist white guys calling you the N-word, telling you that they'll crack your head, different things like that. Take the line down, go to the mess hall. And we would demand that we're not leaving until that guy comes off the wall because you've been abusing too many people. So I say all that to say the mindset was there's no man left behind, right? We don't dismiss anyone. You only dismiss yourself. We're here to support you. We're here to lift you up, and we're here to surround you with the love and what it is that you need. Tell us what you need. Be open and speak to us about what it is that you need so that we can help you receive that so that we can fulfill our greater goal.
That's amazing. Hand it over to Sankar in the group if you have any other questions for Bruce in the time we have remaining. Oh, you're on mute, Sankar.
All right, we'll now open it up for any questions from the team. Do you have any questions for Bruce? Any scenarios of resilience that you want to discuss?
Have Christopher here. Christopher, if you're okay sharing what you put in the chat, that would be good.
Hello. So I was first off, amazing and inspirational talk today. Really captured our attention, I think. I'm curious how you feel about, or if you feel that spirituality plays a role in the resiliency and state of mind that you're discussing.
Very much so. One of the quotes that I put on my wall was that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And I think when you understand that being a spiritual being means that the spirit is omnipresent in every one of us and in the universe. So my prayers and my meditation and my focus on what is greater than myself, and often when I used to meditate, I would focus on my pineal gland, and I would think about what's greater, the greater forces, the greater universe, and what it means to be a part of it, and how important it was that I willed myself, that I visualized myself in a better circumstance or doing what I'm doing now. So yeah, spirituality is essential to me being grounded and knowing that I'm just a small speck in this greater universe amongst great and beautiful people like yourself and others on the team. Thank you so much, Chris.
That's a great question, Christopher. Any other questions, folks? I'll start calling on folks here. Marissa, you seem like you have a question. What are you pondering?
I was actually gonna ask Chris's question, but it's already been asked. So like the burnout, when you have too much of it, it can affect the mental health. Right. Do you, Bruce? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for being with us today. It's kind of like secondhand that we try to multitask while listening at the same time, but today it was hard to multitask because the topic is pretty heavy and just hits right home. So do you have any tips as to I know we each have our own ways of getting to that point that it affects mental health and then it affects everyone around you. aside from, you know, getting your spiritual beliefs, whatever that is, in the plan, are there any other ways or techniques, if you will, to kind of like manage the burnout?
Exactly. One of the things that I've very conscious of doing every few days is taking a step back. Taking a step back, focusing on my breath, and getting involved in nature. Because I think that the freest part of us is the natural state that we're all in, you know, from the grass and being around that oxygen, being around those, you know, animals that are free, right? And just being around nature and breathing, right? Focusing on your breath because it is what allows you to be present. Our breath and breathing from our diaphragm, learning how to breathe. It's so important, and it keeps us grounded and it keeps us present, and finding someone to have a discussion with, taking a step back and having a discussion with Ian, or taking a walk in the park and having a discussion with Ian, letting him know what's on my mind and how I feel, because you have to take a step back in order to replenish, to rejuvenate, right? When you feel yourself getting to that point, I think it's so important to go to a supervisor, go to someone, one of your colleagues, and say, I'm getting to this point. Let's have a discussion with our higher up so I can kind of take a step back and just assess what it is I'm doing, assess my life, assess where I'm at, what parts of me are being neglected. Because mental health is mental wealth, right? Health is wealth all the way. And it's so important that you understand that your life and your wellness is your primary priority. It's a primary goal of yours, right? It's nothing nothing more important than you being well. And I think that your colleagues like Ian and others know that. So I think it's important for you to take that step back and open up and share and know that people want the best from you and they see the best in you. So it's a safe space for you to open up and have those conversations and share and let people know what you need and what you're in need of at that time.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I do have a question on the decarceration. What are some of the things that are right now innovative ideas that in that space of decarceration? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. My personal passion is the decarceration of females and girls. Some 80% of incarcerated females have been victims of domestic violence, or they've suffered from some level of substance abuse or mental health. And I do not believe that jails should prioritize treatment. I do not believe that jail is a place for a woman or a female under any circumstances. And my job is to do all that I can to get our Governor Kathy Hochul to begin releasing females en masse. And so I work with the Douglas Project, but I also work with Survived and Punished, which our sole goal is the decarceration of females. There are over 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States, leaving behind 2.7 million children. Children of incarcerated parents suffer tremendous trauma. It was actually my topic in my TEDx talk, was how do we get our society to view children of incarcerated parents as a public health crisis and to acknowledge them as such, because when we say that it's a collateral consequence of mass incarceration, it's really a misnomer because children are losing their primary caregivers. So that's a primary loss for a child when they lose a mother or father to incarceration. And it puts them deeper into adverse childhood experiences. It dives them deeper into poverty when one income is removed from the household. So I think when we begin to acknowledge this as a public health crisis, we can get involved and understand that right now is a moment in time where we need females and women home. We need treatment, not jails. for many of our women. And again, I said survived and punished is a movement that I'm a part of, as well as the Douglas Project, which allows you to see and converse with some of the untapped talent that we have behind prison bars. I mean, I've met guys that can teach coding without any book. I know guys right now that can go on that have gone on the blackboard for the last year. They taught themselves how to code. And this guy has about 20 years in with a life sentence. He goes on the blackboard and he brings 25 other guys into a classroom, and they have books. He has no book, and he teaches them the language of coding. He teaches them what it means to code. And it's working. Right? So we can't just throw away human beings, as particularly our mothers and daughters and sisters and aunts. And we've already gained some traction with pushing Kathy Hochul to do executive clemency, every quarterly, which historically has only been done one time a year around Christmas time. Now she does it every 3 months. She's releasing people on executive clemency. What I'm particularly asking for is more females and girls, because those visiting rooms are empty. The women don't receive the support that the men receive, and we need to begin decarcerating women and girls. So that's my heart and my soul. And I think it starts with going in with the Douglas Project and seeing, incarcerated people as human beings.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce. Any other questions?
So while folks are gathering their questions here, Bruce, how can we help you? What can we do to support your causes, your initiatives? You've been very generous with your time, and we want to support you too. So how can we collectively support you?
I think, to be completely honest with you, your time in some way, shape, or form, which is the most precious commodity that we have, look at the Douglas Project. Look at douglasproject.org and see how we can galvanize a group, because we're going all across the country in jails and prisons, and let's see how we can put a group together and let's go inside. Right? Invite a friend to go inside with the Douglas Project. Invite a friend to do a virtual visit with Colorado, and if you're interested, you can Ian, you can send me their names, emails, and titles, and I can put it in my spreadsheet and share it with my colleagues over at the Douglas Project, and we'll reach out to you and see, what virtual visit you're comfortable with. If you want to do an in-person visit, we can also do that. You can share my email, my contact, my LinkedIn, Bruce Bryan, my Instagram, bruce.bryan24, with anyone who wants to get involved. You can reach out to me personally. You can share my number. Like, I'm an open book. And like I said, I eat, sleep, and breathe this because I know that the reality is we need each other, and it's going to take the best of us to reach the rest of us and to lift each other up. And it's so important that we understand that incarcerated people and formerly incarcerated people have redeeming value. They have redeeming value, and you would be surprised some of the minds and the hearts of the men and women that you meet behind bars.
Wow. We'll definitely share your contact info, Bruce. And for folks who are interested in supporting the Douglas Project, can definitely reach out to myself, the Sankar, and I will get you in touch with Bruce. This has been very powerful, and I would love to encourage folks, if you can, unmute yourself, and let's give Bruce a big round of applause for showing up today in the way that he did. And this has been amazing, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks,
Thank
Bruce, for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
You.
much.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Super
You too.
interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.